Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodeau, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana.
1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
How y'all doing this evening? We're going to get started, and we're having a little technical difficulty. We have a presentation that I do like to share, but they're working on that right now, and so I kind of just start talking a little bit. And I just want to start off by thanking you guys for coming out here and giving us some of your time. And I feel like time is our most valuable resource, and I really appreciate you giving us some of yours. It's important that we get out in the communities, and I've talked about transparency and giving information to our citizens so they can make informed decisions. And so it's not a one-time deal. This is going to be a regularly occurring deal, and we have these throughout the parish. And if you want to go to another one, you're welcome to it. You don't have to go to the one just in your area. And we have some more we're going to get scheduled out to get a little more out in the public. So while we're doing that, I know they're working on setting this up. I want to let you guys know a few people that are here, and this is no particular order, but we brought some employees in case there's a question I can't answer. I'll have a couple other people here that can. So I'm going to start off in the back here in the green shirt, Mr. Noah Leeret, who is the Chief Administrative Officer. Used to be called Parish Manager. We renamed that. I like to do it more like a business, more like a C-level type organization. So we have a CFO, now we have a CAO, and then Mr. Robbie Lee over here is our Chief Communications Officer. So we never had a communications department before, and we now have that. And hopefully I've heard from a couple of you that you saw the level of communication that we had during the hurricane, and that is something that is going to be the norm, right? I want to make sure that people know we worry about them, we care about them, that we get the information so that you guys can recover as soon as possible. Mr. Earl Hughes in the light blue shirt, he is our Office of Emergency Preparedness. He was the guy that really led things during the storm, and the entire team, everybody here has just done an amazing job working through that, being prepared, and just having things go off without a hitch. And there's going to be things that happen in the middle of the storm, and we have to adapt. And I feel like with our team that we have, we can do that quickly and make sure we do everything we can in the name of safety for our residents. Mr. Clay Nakan, dark shirt, solid waste. So debris pickup and trash and all that stuff. It's some of the vegetation stuff he deals with. Christy, his assistant, standing next to him in the light blue shirt right there. Wait, say hi. Mr. Mark Black, Coastal Restoration. Mark right there. So he deals with coastal restoration and hurricane prevention. Mr. Jim Wendell, who's in charge of our newly created quality of life, and I'll talk about a little bit of that in the slide presentation. We have Caroline Este, who was up at the front. Russell Walters and Ryan Malasso are part of our communications department. Ryan. Mr. Ryan Page, HR Risk Management. And then we join with Mr. Steve Trosclair, council member. I think that's everybody. And so we are doing some recording. We got HTV. We have our group out here recording. What's that? Okay, yeah, so Gina Danos wanted to make it fire chief, but she just came back from the Island Road. And for those that may have not seen what's going on there, I know we had to lay some limestone because the road got washed out. And so we're working to make sure that people can get back to that area short term and then figure out what that longer term play is. So I'm still working on stuff. So I'll offer an option. One is we could just go through and answer questions, but I do have a presentation I'd like to show if we can get it up. And then answer any questions during and or after. I'm not going to leave till every question is answered. And what we don't know or can't answer, we're going to get the information and get back to you. And so if that didn't come up, we might just jump into questions. But I'll ask this question. Anybody is dealing with any hurricane type, any related issues with hurricane? Any questions related to the hurricane? We were declared a disaster area through the federal government, and once they did that, that really kicked in some things into gear as it relates to public assistance. I understand as of Monday evening, we're going to have disaster assistance center set up in the main library. On top of that, FEMA is going around and talking to people, and we did our own disaster assessments. And so I'll just say a few things real quick if you hadn't seen it. If you do have somebody come up to you that says they're from FEMA, make sure you see an ID card. They should have that. Make sure you don't sign anything under duress. You know, if you're not sure, take a second, talk to a family member, talk to a relative, talk to a neighbor. If you got any questions, call us. And then, like I said, FEMA is going to be out and about and really working to get information from people so that we could go ahead and make sure that, again, people have the best opportunity for recovery.
Yes, sir. Can I ask you a question now?
You sure can.
Hurricane related?
Sure.
I guess everybody can hear me with this microphone.
People on TV can.
Yeah.
okay.
We want everybody to hear you.
Look, my biggest question, and I thought about this when my wife told me you were having this meeting. I asked someone else in government earlier on after the hurricane, and I was told that you, our parish president, is considering no longer maintaining that Montegut levee, the forced drainage levee from Normal Canal to the end of Point Form. And that levee has protected Montegut my entire life. We spent millions over the years. Barry Boverland did a lot. The last hurricanes, every parish president after every hurricane spent millions trying to fortify and reinforce, even sheet piles, this levee. I heard some rumors from people, and I tried to find out if it's true, and I still don't know, that the levee over Wonder Lake has partially washed out. I think it's just somebody put that on Facebook just to stir things up. I sent my grandson back there to look at it, and he didn't tell me what he found. I'm still waiting on the results of what he took pictures of, the J2 levee. And whenever there's a storm, we monitor every possible situation in Montegut area, including Ward 7. And without this Montegut levee, many times, Ward 7, although they had a good levee, that breached a few times, the Montegut levee caused a lot of the flooding in Chauvin, up and down Little Tie, all the way to Cocodrie, really, all the way to Houma, all the way to the airport, because the Montegut levee was breached or the water went over, the levee wasn't high enough. We got it up to a grade now that I think it probably helped us for this last storm. And I'm begging you, because I still have family here. Over the years, I've had a house on every street in this town that I used to rent. Every street in Montegut, I had a house on it. And I lost them for hurricanes. Lost all the furniture first, then we lost the roofs, then finally I got rid of them. Couldn't afford it anymore. But for me to stay as an investor in Montegut, I'm still a cattle producer as well. And we've lost over the years thousands of head of cattle over the years, from storms mostly, and the salt water that follows it, that cattle have to drink after the storm, nowhere to get fresh water in. And I know you're going to do a presentation, and I'd like to ask you another question a little later. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think it's important to me that I let you know that the Montegut Forest drainage system right now is not adequate. If you drive down the 1441 Highway 55, Montegut, that's the lower Montegut, you can see the water on my property that my grandson takes care of from Highway 55. The whole back end of my property right now, about 200, maybe 250 acres, is underwater. I don't know if the pumps are pumping, if there's some obstructions in by the cache. I'm not getting nowhere with the drainage department. I haven't been able to get anywhere with the drainage department for the last 50 years. They tell untruth. Parish presidents are not aware of some of the things that go on. So I'm glad to get you to meet you tonight. I tried earlier. But it's important that what I know about this parish gets passed on. Not for me, for the future of my grandkids, my great-grandkids, everybody else's grandkids in this room. And you guys are all young enough to experience some of what I've experienced over the last 50, 60 years. I'm 77 years old. And there's nothing about a hurricane that I don't know. I've been through the eye of about 8 or 9 of them, all the way back since Hurricane Flosser, Hurricane Hilda, Hurricane Betsy, Hurricane Warren, all of them, and never left my house. I got damaged for the last one 3 years ago, took my roof off. I still stayed there. Most of us who are my age won't leave. we're prepared for whatever God got in mind for us, and I think God is the one creating this. I just pray that somebody watching this on HTV, hey, we just start praying a lot of people for the last 2, 3 storms.
I agree with that.
I really believe that. And I never just tried to take credit for a few of them, and I got up and I said, look, don't take credit for this. Hurricane Margot, like I told you a little earlier, it just stopped. It didn't come, but it could have come. And Montegut would have went underwater like it did for Hill and Betsy and Juan and all of them if Hurricane Margot wouldn't have stopped and would have kept on coming, because the J2 was not intact. We did not have a 12-foot levee. We didn't even have a 5-foot levee because the J2 was not complete. And I sold some dirt to J2 levee to the 11th district for $1 a yard. Give up some of my property is precious to me to pass on to my next generation of cattle people, farmers. Without the land, I'm nothing. Without the land, my grandson's nothing. That's all he wants to do. But if I don't get enough help from levee district, from the parish president, from the Corps of Engineers, to maintain what little bit of land we have left, we'll soon let the storm kill us, I guess.
So let me ask you a question on not doing maintenance on that levee. Hadn't had that conversation. That's something that as we go through this process and working with our public works guy, David couldn't make it tonight, but the guy he answers to, Noah, right back there, I can tell you the pumps are pumping. There's always that conversation, are the pumps on? Every time before we have a rain event, we pump down as far as we could pump, every time. And so there's a permanent height, and then before a rain event, we pump down below that. And so we do that. The pump's always on. The pump's always pumping, whether we can see it electronically or have to go put our hands on it. So, we're going to get you information about that area you're talking about holds water, and I know we're going to want to look at that and check it out. But I'm telling you now, we hadn't said we're not maintaining a levee or not doing this. If it's our responsibility, we're going to maintain it like we always have and always will. So.
Thank you, Jason. Look, I wasn't accusing you. I was asking a question.
Right. No, I appreciate it. That's why I'm here. I'm here to answer questions.
Here's something that's imperative that I found out the truth about. I'll make calls first on the phone.
Right.
I just found out about this meeting. I'm disappointed that there's so few people, but again, it's to get the message out.
Well, we just had a hurricane, so I appreciate it. If 2 people show up, we're going to have a conversation, so it just matters to me who does. Right.
And most of them because of that Montegut levee.
Right.
All the way back to 1978 when they were going to cut. I don't mind saying names. He could get mad at me if he wants. And one of them is dead. It's Good Talbot. I sat at a meeting over here with David Thompson, head of the Corps, was going to cut a ditch behind the Montegut levee from the Houma Canal all the way to Point Farm.
Right.
On a pretext of storm protection.
So let's do this. I know you want to chat some. He's going to get the information on that one deal. If you don't mind, I'll go through a presentation, and we will talk about levees and pumps and water, all you want. If you don't mind, me, you and Noah can connect after this. Just so I could.
I don't think anybody in this parish knows more to be about.
I believe you. Hey, look, I talked about when I was running for election, was a conversation that says when we talk about drainage projects, we want to talk to residents and understand whether water stacks and whether water doesn't flow and all that stuff, because I believe we should bring all that into the conversation of what drainage looks like. And so I know we got a bunch of hardworking people in the parish doing everything they can, and maybe they do or don't have some information. It's going to be people like you that give us that info. So if you don't mind, we'll sync up after this and have that conversation. I know Noah loves talking about water. You and him, they'll probably talk for 2 hours and not miss a beat.
I look forward to it, Jason.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? You want me to go ahead and start? Yes, ma'am.
What's the status on the Company Canal Bridge?
I'm being told February 2025. And the call I was on a while ago was with the Executive Secretary of DOTD. We have a quarterly meeting with DOTD to understand. And sometimes they'll say something, this is going to be completed by here, and what we think the project is versus what they think the project is could be a disconnect, right? That happened on the Clendenning Road project where they were talking about overlaying and they were going to do everything, and they come to find out it was just a repair, and just having a clear line of communication, and their hands are tied a little bit also. And what we're talking about is we want to work together, right? What they can't do, maybe we can step in and help. But what's most important thing to me is the roads are safe. And so that bridge won't be finished fast enough, right? I come down to Montegut, I come down to Berg. I go around like everybody else, and I've sent so many pictures, and I've been on DOTD's butt about fixing Country Drive once that's done, because they didn't have that in their plans. And they said, well, we overlaid it and widened it. And I was like, no, you did that to North Country Drive part area, but Santa Ana down, you didn't do any of that. So making them aware of that and holding them accountable. I can tell you with the Robinson Bridge project, they poured concrete. The concrete didn't hold like it was supposed to, so they had to end up changing concrete contractors. And anytime it rains, it does the latest stuff. And our goal is to make sure you have the latest information. And right now, unfortunately, we're being told February of 25, right? So cross our fingers, say some prayers, and hope that it happens. It won't happen soon enough. It's hard to understand why it's taking as long as it is. But I feel like we are having different conversations with DOTD since I've been in office. And it's thankful, like Noah said, we have a quarterly meeting because we did some things that got their attention. And so they're like, hey, can we meet and, do something to make sure you guys don't cut this or chop that down or whatever. And so, I did a declaration emergency for St. Charles and Tunnel where they had that big bump. And that was an opportunity that said, like, we're going to fix it. It's important that our residents have safe roads to travel on. And by doing that, by that Saturday, they had it patched, right? So we're going to do everything we can to hold them accountable. And
So are they saying it's parts they're waiting on, or just what are they saying?
the words they use is supply chain. So that means we ordered something, it's taking a little bit longer. We're having this problem with concrete, we're having this various issues. And so when they end that conversation, we hold their feet to the fire, and they go, man, they're telling us we want it done just as bad as you want it done. And in some of these contracts that I have to double check with that one, I know I might know, like on Robinson Canal Bridge project, if they're late, every day they pay a dollar amount. I don't know if that's in that contract. Maybe it wasn't. And we got different people in charge of DOTD now. And I know the governor's talking about blowing it up and restructuring it. And so I'm really starting to see some movement. I feel confident. And if not, we're going to take it over. We're going to do executive emergency declarations and do what we got to do to get things done.
So just thanks, Jason. I'm glad to hear that you talking to him about fixing Country Drive to
Yes, ma'am.
Berg and
I grew up in
on
Country
that,
Drive, so I understand.
Thank you.
I went to Montegut right there. I know. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay.
So I live on 55, and we have a drainage canal between the highway and Hope Farm Road. That thing is so inadequate. It's just jammed every which way. For this storm, if we would have gotten water, there's nowhere the water would have been able to get out because it's so blocked. So, if we could get something done to...
You wrote it on there?
It's on there.
Yes, sir.
And on her point is the amount of 18-wheeler traffic that we have on Country Drive. Just this last week, we had an 18-wheeler and a Greyhound bus fighting to get on the bridge.
Right.
We need something done to stop the 18-wheelers from trying to take Country Drive. They actually come down, take the small bridge by St. Anne,
right,
come down Country Drive through residential area, and then try to turn on the bridge. And there's been many a times that they've gotten stuck.
You want right. So the first thing I'll say is, you see that, call sheriff's office, because we trying to shut it down.
Last week, 2 18-wheelers got stuck on the bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
You wanted to.
Just the information, when you first open the shut the bridge down, you don't saw how they went out. I'm passing orders, actually, it's illegal for an 18-wheeler to be on Country Drive. My side, it's illegal, it's against the law. Okay, because it's a law that says they can't be on it. So it's up to the sheriff's office has to enforce it. We not enforce it, but it is a law that I use to keep them off of that road.
Or maybe some bigger signs or something.
Well, that was my next point is there's no signs. The signs have been removed that shows that there's a truck limit.
Right. So
No, this was before the storm.
you got that? Okay.
This was before the storm. The signs were gone.
So.
Oh, okay.
So a couple things. So one, in the conversation with DOTD, my concern was, like, what does it take for us to have law enforcement direct traffic, right? So we had this meeting, and they were like, it's got to be this, this, and this, and none of those applied to that situation because it depends on what's that? Well, so the speed limit was one, and you go through these lists of things that because it didn't have any of that, they couldn't put law enforcement, which means the contractor is not required to have law enforcement to direct. And so I'd send pictures of the road backed up past Burke Supermarket, and I'm like, you know, it's a school zone. Like, at what point do we get to do something different? Because the sheriff's saying, look, I don't have the money for the overtime to do this, and who's going to pay for it? And I'm like, well, it's state road. Why don't we get state police out there to come out and fix it, right? So we're definitely having those conversations. For you to let us know signs are missing, they might not know that. So we're going to get back on them, and we're going to be like, hey, you need to be out here patrolling more. We're going to let the sheriff know. We want to let everybody know, because Noah got his mirror knocked off on that road, right? So we're experiencing it personally too, and it's unacceptable. And so I appreciate you letting us know about it. And he's got 2 things he's going to work on, and we're going to make sure we get those things resolved. And if it doesn't, call us, right? Call the main number. What's 868-5050 is the best number to give, right? 868-5050 is the parish government. You know, if you call sheriff and you call this and you call that, you don't get what you need, call us, and we're going to make some phone calls, because safety is my #1 priority. So. And we'll go check out that ditch and see what's going on with it. So, right. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? I answer questions. I don't have to do a presentation. I answer questions all night.
I live on 55 Street, a couple of houses down from St. Matt Street.
Okay.
We have old Gosland property back there, right behind my house, and there's an old barn. I've contacted the parish. I have messaged Mr. Trosclair. I have gotten no responses back year after year. The barn is falling apart. I have coyotes in my backyard chasing my animals. Huge snakes, which was caught last week. They just keep coming up and coming up because the grass is not being tended to. I understand Miss Gosland had passed away and stuff, and she's got so many children or grandchildren. The one that I need to get in touch with lives in Florida, who I cannot get in touch with. The property needs to be cut. The grass is 10 foot tall, might get cut once a year, and the barn is pretty much flying everywhere in our houses for storms. So,
can you put that address on that document for us, if you don't mind?
I did.
Perfect.
Did. Thank you.
Because that's what I tell people. You know, after I was going around Ida, there was an old gas station on the corner of Industrial and Grand Caille, right? I don't remember the old gas station. And I had a bunch of people just tell me, like, man, it's just junk, it's junk, and it's junk. And so I said, well, one thing I want to make sure you don't do is think we know, right? There's a possibility that somebody didn't pass it, or maybe they passed it, and we don't want them on their phones and everything. So for all those reasons, I actually showed them how to go online and report that property. And that property is demolished, right? So we want to make sure, the first question is going to be, are we aware of that property on our list? Have we gone through the channels? We're actually in the process of changing some ordinances.
There's a pipeline that runs parallel with that property.
Right.
And I don't know how they're tending to that property, well, the pipeline. But like I said, I've gotten in touch with the parish. I've put in complaints, emails, PM'd, and tried to get in touch with Mr. Steve Trosclair, and no response from anyone.
Well, I guarantee you're going to get a response. And, you know, the point I was wanting to make is that, you know, so we have to go through a process where we put it in a paper, and then we send a letter, and if the letter gets returned, so we're actually going to do it to where we're going to have the ability to look up, like, potential other addresses and have a person serve. And so with that process right there, we feel like we're going to be more successful in getting to the people we need to get. Because what happens is that they don't cut the grass, we send somebody, they cut the grass. If they don't, we send the bill to the residential owner, property owner, and if they don't pay that, it ends up going to sheriff's cell and ends up going through a process of where the parish takes it over and does that whole thing. And so we're hoping that's enough. Unfortunately, it's not. And fortunately, we've had some money to be able to demolish some things and use some American Rescue money to do that, because without that, we'd be demolishing less stuff. So we do have 500 properties that are in our condemnation, in that condemnation process. We were doing 25 a quarter. We've bumped that to 50. We're also working with South Central Planning to start doing more also. And so we should see us starting to go through that list a whole lot more. And sometimes it does get caught in a process where we're waiting on somebody to contact, or we got to get an attorney involved. But by giving it on this list, we're going to give it to the person that deals with that and say, get me a status on this so we can call this lady back and tell her what's going on with this particular issue. And that's what I hope you see as we go through it. So we redid the logo. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And we did that so that the city would like to consider that special. Right? I want to make sure that it's used for special occasions and official occasions. And with that redesign of the logo and or adding this marketing logo, we're redoing the website. And we're going to make it a ton easier to use. And we're going to do as much self-service stuff. I don't know if everybody saw during the hurricane, we created that outage map for the Terrebonne Parish utilities, right? Just so that people can look at a map and get a real-time understanding of where that power is. You're going to see more and more of that coming out through our government, and that's going to be due to the communications group we created, which we combine marketing, IT, and now have comms to make sure we're getting information to residents in a timely manner. So, all right. Any other questions? Okay.
Call us, and I'm the chairperson of the Recreation Board. When we established the pod system, we need to have a better communication with the government, because we was getting stuff delivered here, and they was trying to deliver stuff at the fire department. We need to get a better communication, and I talked to you a little bit, and we could still, it's a work in progress. I understand that. So, but when you set up for a pod, it's supposed to stay in one spot. You don't want the people to go driving around.
We set up a pod here. I don't know what happened with the fire station and Earl, who's back here.
They was sitting
managed all that
tarp there, and we got to transfer back over here.
Right.
So I have everything in one location.
And look, we're going to do an after-action report.
Yeah.
Is what I feel like our team did a great job, but there's always opportunities for improvement, and that's the feedback that we need. And Earl's here to hear it tonight, so we could say, look, and I would.
Trust me, I'll text Earl, I'll call him, and look, we get everything solved. Danny works great over here with everybody, so we just want to make sure we stay in good communication after the storm.
Right. So it's interesting, and stuff as I learn as I go through this, and you look at the pods, and it's technically Terrebonne Parish, but I visited all the pods on Saturday, and each one of those is being run a little bit differently because they got a different commanding officer, and one of them, and they were writing what they needed on the windshield, and when they drove up, it was 3 ice and 2 this and 2 that, and I was like, man, this is awesome. We need to do this everywhere. And even if we try, hopefully we can, but at a certain point, they're gonna do what they want. And we can be like, hey, can you do this? Kind of thing. But having Earl just hear that and doing everything we can to make sure.
He's got the experience over here, 33 years been doing the pod system. So he has it down where he needs to.
Right.
Everything. So we were working with the American Legion, so we all teamed up to keep it going. So
right.
I'm hoping everything went well with the community, and I think it did. So.
Well, we appreciate feedback because we're always looking to be better and do things differently or better next time. So,
yep.
Any other questions? I'll do questions all night. I'm good. Anybody's dying to see the presentation? Anybody? Yeah? Oh. The boss. Okay. All right. So, again, real informal. As we go through this, you got a question, raise your hand. We'll talk about it. And I want to make sure I don't leave till every conversation happens and every question gets answered. And if we can't answer something, we'll get the information and get back to you. So I tried to get as many directors. I told them they wasn't required they be here. I love they're here so that we can establish relationships with our residents, right? To better have a conversation with a quality of life person or EOC person, that relationship that gets built through that, maybe a little less likely to yell at somebody. It probably will still happen, but I also was worried because we just had the hurricane and everybody's been working real hard and real long. And so I said, look, if you can make it, great. If not, I should be answered most, if not everything. So I do want to thank the team members that are here, and I thank Steve for coming out, and HTV for what they do, and our team for, again, just trying to get information to our residents so that you can make informed decisions. And so when we named this presentation, we call it Recovery, Resiliency, and Quality of Life. And there's some stuff in here that doesn't apply to you, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the power plant, just because I think it's important for people to know how we operate as a government and what we're dealing with also with FEMA, because we're dealing with FEMA. I feel like I need to get a shirt that says patience. The definition of patience is waiting on FEMA, right? I feel like that's the ultimate definition of patience. So we'll jump into this. You can see that logo. And so we've been having some post-auto rebuilding projects. So we lost the fire station on the east side at the air base. Design kickoff meeting was held July 2024, and of course they got to go through a bid process. So you could see it with just that first project that we are still working with FEMA to get things funded. And the part of the conversation I think people have trouble understanding is why now? Why is it 3 years and we're just dealing with FEMA? Well, the way FEMA works is they won't get involved until you've gone through the insurance process. We had to sue our insurance company. And so that didn't get settled to the end of the last year, beginning of this year. And so instead of FEMA working in conjunction, which I've had conversations with FEMA and our congresspeople and the governor about, is that it seems like at some point they could work in conjunction. But they had to go, okay, the insurance is going to pay everything it's going to pay, and we're going to take it from here. And we were only allowed to get $65 million in coverage on insurance. That's all the market would give us. The power plant I'm going to talk about itself is $170 million, right? So we had as much insurance as we could buy that we'd be allowed to, which is better off than the school district, because the school district had $10 million on $200 million worth of damage, right? So that's the conversations that say, we'd love to buy more insurance, and we'd love to not to rely on FEMA. But after the Ida, the most we get was, I think, $25 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. And then from there, we were able to bump up to $45 million. So we still don't have the $65 million we had before Ida. We only got $45 million now, right? So we have to go through FEMA. And FEMA doesn't get involved until the insurance is settled. And that's why you're seeing some of these projects just happen or just get completed, because we got to go through the conversation if it's 50% damage and if they're going to repair it versus replace it, and that whole deal, which I'm sure some of you have dealt with, right? So as a parish government, we're dealing with the same thing. And so we have Civic Center ongoing. We lost part of our temporary roof on the Civic Center because we're working on repairs with it, along with our power plant for Francine. So now we're like, okay, now we got a whole nother issue we got to work with a different bucket of money, so that, and hopefully we don't lose power. I don't think this is us, by the way. So anyway, so Civic Center, we were working on February 25, probably because of that roof. We'll probably push that back a little bit, but we're still able to have functions. Hero Fest is this weekend. If you're not aware of that, don't know what's going on, a great opportunity to go celebrate our first responders and heroes. Rodney Atkins is going to be playing some music along with another bunch of bands, and they're raising money for first responders. So if y'all are not aware of that, you got to go check it out. A bunch of great food and a great time this weekend. Dumas Auditorium completed July of 2024. Government Tower, the building we work out of every day. We don't have everybody in. They were talking about October 25. We're probably thinking November, maybe even December, that we'll be able to move our people back into the first 2 floors. So eventually you better go to permits, and some other groups that are not in the Government Tower now will eventually be back in the Government Tower, so you don't have to go figure out where they are across the city. Miss Auditorium, we actually just use that as a shelter. And we just moved those people to Dumas, and we're actually getting ready to shut that down on Friday. We only got a couple people left, but that's another project. And then we have a health unit building that we're going to be building. The plans are 90% complete. We anticipate construction to start, October, November, maybe December, of a new health unit on Tunnel Boulevard next to the one we currently have now. Any questions before I move on? All right. So the conversation you probably heard a lot about, and if not, we'll talk about it for the first time here, is this CDBG-DR funding. So this is money that the state said we're going to give Terrebonne Parish because of the amount of damage we had for Ida and everything that resulted from Ida. We're going to give the parish $117 million. And what they did is said, come up with a plan, give us that plan. And so they said, we're going to give it to you in 2 allocations. So we had to do an allocation 1 plan, allocation 2 plan. And we went through based on town halls we've had, processes like we have a disaster recovery plan, we have a hazard mitigation plan, just different plans we've collected over time to figure out what our residents needed. And it's really specifically to address low to moderate income, which is most of Terrebonne Parish. And these projects have to be related to either resiliency or economic development. And so when you look at some of these projects, our applications are due on November 30th of 2024. We had to have the first one in by January, the second one in was by March, and then they were going to go through question and answer, and then they came back and said, we're going to put everything as one allocation now, and it's due at the end of November for the funding. And what we're looking at is they said, we're going to give you 117, but you got to apply projects for it, and we got to designate, we're going to build this project, it's going to help these people in this area, and this is, what it means if it's a match or if it's a complete project. And so some of the projects we're working on, one is water redundancy and water quality. So there's a water line, and this is us working with Waterworks, that goes from the west to the east side that they've continually patched and patched and patched, and it's time for it to have a new one. So we said we're going to take this funding of this CDBGR money and put it into water quality, water availability and quality for the entire east side. And that's something that's going to provide a better opportunity for not losing water in a normal day, right? So small business grants, again, this is all parish-wide. So we're saying we want to give small business grants we're going to create an application process of what that looks like and who could qualify, and making sure we include as many people throughout the parish that have an opportunity to get a small business grant for their small business. Supporting the seafood industry. So we actually have that broken up into 2 phases. One's going to be an immediate help to fishermen. Maybe it's plate freezers and sort machines on vessels, and a study that's going to help us determine what the next phase should be. And I look at it from like a phase 1 or tier 1 of being maybe somebody has a boat or 2, tier 2, somebody has maybe a dock, tier 3 that's maybe a processor, and the different things they might need, and doing a study in phase 1 to figure out how we can divide that money out. With opportunities for a place to sell, like at a market, maybe some cold storage, maybe an opportunity through our small business incubator to incubate processes where if people want to take the product that they're catching and run it through a value add or turn it into a product they want to deliver that's fried or pre-made. That's what some of these things are going to allow us to do and really help people, again, not just necessarily incubate a business, but incubate a process in a business. I catch it, I get it ready, I got a great recipe, but I need to get it in a box and need to get it to the store. Well, we're going to incubate this part of that process. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. Activate the Bayou. I grew in Berg. I rode hydroslides and everything back up Hollywood Canal, and just love the waterway and just love the natural resource that we have that everybody else would die for, right? Knowing myself before this, we're part of the Hatch Grant. We built the bandstand in the courthouse square. Our next project were kayak launches throughout Terrebonne Parish and creating a 65-mile paddle loop, which would be the only loop in the state, and provide ecotourism, economic development, right? But to do that, our bayous have to be healthy. And so, Noah, we created in fact, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but a Bayou Revival campaign, and he ran with this and my full support. But the first thing we did is, Bayou Terrebonne is the main order, right? We got to get that one started. We actually had some funding, so we went and cleaned out from Lafayette Street to Westside Boulevard, and we're working on kicking off another project that's going to take that we already have funding for, that we've had since about 2012, to run that all the way to the parish line. And then using that as an example of what we want to do in the rest of the bayous and get them all dredged and cleaned and maintained. And also at the same time, introducing more fresh water into Bayou Terrebonne through Bayou Lafourche and Bayou St. Louis. And so by doing that, again, making it healthier, making it something that we can utilize more than what it's being utilized now. And part of what we're going to do that we're not able to do, we have funding for some stuff now. We're looking for other funding through this Activate the Bayou program to make sure we do that same project throughout the rest of the bayous in Terrebonne Parish, because every one of them needs to be maintained, needs to be cleaned out, still have some storm debris. We'll make sure we do everything we can to make sure our bayous are healthy and maintained with a plan moving forward. Stormwater study and a wastewater study. So there are a lot of areas that don't have sewage yet. And what we have to do is, if there's a grant that I want to get sewage for an area, we have no idea what that costs. So we're going to do this wastewater study, and with that wastewater study, it's going to be this neighborhood or this street or these groups of houses. This is what it's going to cost to add sewage there. But we also have a north treatment plant and a south treatment plant, and we have to understand what that additional sewage from these residents, these neighborhoods, and these streets mean for that system, and taking those numbers together so that we have those numbers to go, all right, I need to get, this neighborhood's 10 million and maybe a 2 million on the wastewater side, and we could add that neighborhood. Okay, let me go apply for a grant for that dollar amount. And that's going to allow us to really go through and do that. And then when you look at the stormwater study, the same thing. How the water drains, how the water flows, getting all that information together to come with that foolproof plan and understand what areas are gravity drainage that maybe have the opportunity to be forced drainage, and just making sure that we put that money right where it needs to be. And conversations about making this area a forced drainage area, right? We have the locks down here, but basically everything comes intercoastal down. And just what does that mean? And how high is intercoastal? They're talking about building locks on the east and west side of the intercoastal. And so that's going to affect things down the line a little bit more too, and just how we manage. It's one of the things we did. We met with the levee district and had a conversation about, we're in the business of moving and managing water, right? And we have to agree that we're in that business. And if they don't open up, they're now in the business of drainage, right? Because they're stopping us flowing. And look, there's a lot of conversations about water lilies and opening the floodgates to let lilies out or let water out. And I got to give it to the people that do those jobs every day. You know, there's certain rules about whether you can open a floodgate or close a floodgate, but if the water's higher on the outside, I could have 2 miles of lanes on the inside and I can't open that gate because that water's coming in, right? And I can guarantee you people are looking at that on a regular basis and making those decisions. And it's stuff that we're aware of and we know about, and we're having conversations about stuff that belongs to us, stuff that belongs to the levee district, stuff that belongs to waterworks, about what they can open or not open, what we need to open, what we need to maintain, what we need to build up. We're having those conversations on a regular basis. And right before the storm, the levee district had to get out there and do large and work on a levee that had some spots at 8 foot and try to build that up and build it up as much as we can. Thank goodness that storm didn't go 30 to 50 miles west, because we're talking a whole different conversation. If that's a bigger storm, we're talking a whole conversation, right? We were looking at the gauge of the Montegut floodgate down here and like, oh, it's 10.2, 10.3, looks good. Come to find out, the levee district's like, oh, that's what it goes up to. You know, it's 11 foot. And I got pictures, you know, we went down there right after to understand how well that held. And then I brought an insurance commissioner down here and said, this is what you need to show people. And he's talking about getting people to come down here and touch it and feel it and see it so that they know of the investment that we did ourselves with our own tax dollars saved a bunch of flooding. And we could tell them, Rita, 11,000 homes. Barry, 11. Ida, 3. Francine, 0. Right? And that's important, right? That shows them. And then you start having the same conversation with fortified and house roofs and new roofs and everything, where you go, you know, we didn't have hardly telephone poles down. People lost less shingles. So that investment also should make a difference in our home insurance, right? In our homeowners policies and all. So we're living proof. And people, you know, why we get hit with a hurricane? One, I think that conversation is very important. I think that's the same way that Ida highlighted Laura, Francine's going to highlight Ida. And so I believe that. And I also believe I got to sit in a room with FEMA and Senator Kennedy and the governor and talk to them on a conversation I've been trying to have for the last 4 to 6 months. And the thing I said to them, and they talk about how, you know, we got $1 billion probably in the levee system between Ida and Francine, we probably saved you 2.5. And I got to look at the Secretary of FEMA in the eye and say, but with that, what price can you put on culture and quality of life, right? Because there's no place better to live than where we live at. But, you know, and even there's a conversation of saying, it feels like you're trying to force us out. I know I said those words to the Secretary, and, you know, I love Kennedy. He's like, I think our heart's in the right place. But then she also made the same comment of, but it did lower flood insurance for some people. And I go, you're in the wrong room for that, right? But we get to have a real conversation with somebody across the table, not on a phone, not through email. And that's one of the things that Francine allowed for us to do. And I know with some people, this was their Ida, right? They didn't have any damage for Ida. They didn't have any issues. Some people had their houses destroyed. Some people lost their roof. And we want to know that. But overall, we're blessed. Like, we really dodged a bullet. And you talked about it. We prayed it away. I firmly believe that, right? Because I know I was praying. So, but anyway, so that's what we're looking to do with these funds, for an opportunity for all of our residents throughout the parish. Again, that hand up, not a handout, and doing everything we can to make sure our fishermen, our small businesses, you know, small businesses make up 99% of all business in the nation, right? That's our lifeblood. That's the companies that sponsor teams and everything else. That's that small business. We're going to make sure we're doing everything we can to set them up to be successful. And that small business incubator is going to be in the Whitney Bank building next to TITA. And we're going to have all those resources in one room. And then we're going to take those resources and get them out around the parish. But have that hub, right? We can operate out of that hub and go down every bayou, go up north, you know, Gibson area, and make sure that all our residents get those resources. So, any questions on this? I get a little long-winded, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Does Terrebonne Parish have a spot on their website where you can go and see what these
yes, ma'am.
items are?
It's tpcg.org/recovery.
Okay.
So if you go to our website, it has the stuff we turned into the state OCD, the projects. I think it's 26, 29 projects, has all those broken out and the areas they serve. Another question? Yes, sir.
It's with the bayous. I know there was at one point a little bit of a push to get rid of all the sunken boats and barges and everything. Are y'all going to continue to try that?
So I'll cover that a little bit, but I'll tell you now. So we have 900 derelict vessels in all of our bayous. Right now we have $1 million insurance policy, and we're going to try to grab as many as we can. There's another grant we applied for part of the conversations that we are having through this Francine conversation was that we're talking about the derelict vessels, and we're talking about doing a comparison now to what it was after Ida, because we did a side sonar after Ida. But we met with the Coast Guard, we met with Wildlife and Fisheries. Who else we met with? Corps. Like, we've been meeting with everybody going, hey, we got all these vessels. Can y'all come help us get rid of them, and what can we do? I've sent information. So Congress hadn't done earmarks in a while, and they're starting to do that. And so I made some requests to our federal delegation that says, we want to clean the bayous. I need to get some bayous cleaned out. I need some vessels taken care of. And so we are working on that with the fact that we have 500 derelict homes, right? We're working on the vessel side of it also. But again, I go back and say, if you see something and you think it's new, let us know, because until we go do the side sonar, we might not know what's there. We had a conversation about a vessel. What bayou was that? The vessel, the middle of the waterway. Huh? No. Anyway, we had a vessel in the middle of the waterway, and we're calling everybody, and it's like nobody wanted to touch it. And I was like, man. Grand Kai. Oh, really? Okay.
It's right there.
Okay. Make sure you write that down. They pull it out? Okay. So our goal is I want to get all that stuff cleaned up. Just, to know the bayou like I remember it as a kid, right? To bring that back and to have it be healthy. And I tell you, that's a priority for us, because, people would die to have that resource. And we have it, so we got to make sure we have access. Look, when we started the kayak project, our slogan is Louisiana's bayou country with a guy on a pirogue, right? And we have trouble doing that ourselves. You want to say something?
Yeah, so one of the silver linings from the storm is that we get to go ahead and do an assessment of all the damage that our bayous took from Francine or Ida, and we're currently doing that assessment on all our bayous, all our waterways from Francine, and we had a conversation with the person in charge of debris removal in the waterways, and I pressed it to say, look, man, these are key to our drainage, our culture, our way of life, everything, and we cannot ignore this. We need money for this. We need to clean these, and that's for debris, that's for vessels, that's for everything. And we really pressed on him on that, and Clay can attest. He heard us, and he said, you know what, do what you got to do. So if there is a silver lining from storms, that it does, if we push them, it gives us a chance to clean our bayous like they need to be cleaned, and it's long overdue.
Yep. All right. Yes.
Comment on this vessel.
Yeah.
And you might be talking about a vessel that about 25 years ago, I bought a barge. Had to keep it pumped out so it wouldn't sink. Moved it from Berg to Lower Montegut on the Crossville Road. I got threatened by multiple parish presidents to remove the barge. If the parish government or you want to maintain that bayou side where that barge is at, that it won't erode into the Gulf of Mexico, I'll sell the barge for scrap iron. I put that barge there with the intent of using it for my wetland plant business. I grow marsh plants for every district in the state of Louisiana. We lost 2 this year, and we lost 2 districts last year. We provided plants for every wildlife and fisheries department, the entire coast of Louisiana, and different soil districts. My effort didn't come to fruition because I couldn't afford to do what I wanted to do. The barge is still there. It's not derelict. There's a big split on the south rake of that barge. When I put that barge there, this was high land, dry land. I took my excavator and I dug a slot along Bayou Terrebonne, on my land, completely on my land. Never touched the water, period. Got some equipment that put that barge in that slip, in that slot, and sank it. And it's been sunk there ever since. It's protecting the rest of that lot and the property on 600 acres to the west of it. It's saltwater storm protection. But I would get rid of it if somebody wants to guarantee they're gonna come. He could put rocks, could come build I can't afford a bulkhead. But it's protected by land. And when you're gonna put these laws out about these sunken boats, a lot of them are a nuisance, I agree, all right? And to some people, my barge might be a nuisance to some people. But to me, it's protecting my land. And how you declare a nuisance it has a value. I'm in the wetland plant producing business. We protect land all over the coast of Louisiana with different types of plants, different types of structures that we have built. Cocoa mats, cocoa fiber logs, you name it, we have done it to protect other people's land along the coast of Louisiana, even along the intercoastal, in New Iberia, in Houma, at Mayfield area, the Christmas tree terracing and stuff. There's nothing that I didn't do that was in my ability to do to prevent soil erosion. But some of these things that come up because somebody don't like me, I have a lot of people that don't like me, you'd be surprised. I'm telling you, look.
People right now.
Well, somebody, maybe I don't know. Yeah, hey, Jason, I don't know. What am I tell you? I really don't give a damn. I care about my family, care about my grandkids and my great-grandkids coming up, and I'm going to protect that piece of land with every ounce of energy I got left in my body. I don't have the money to do what I would have liked to do with this barge. It's on the bottom. It can't move. A hurricane can't move it. It's had water over and under and around.
Well, I don't want to get it. Apparently nobody knows.
Well, they know it's there. They know it's there.
No,
and I don't mind advertising it, all right? They put it on TV if you want. But that barge is not derelict. Derelict means it's useless. It has no use, no value. This barge has protected my property. The property on the north side used to be even with the land where I dug this slip at. Now it's a foot underwater because there's no barge there. The body of water is so salty now it's eating up the body salt on both ends of my barge. If my barge wasn't there, the salt water would be to the blacktop road. Then the parish would be responsible for trying to save the road. And it goes, for this last storm, the water went over Crossville Road. In case you don't know, I told it to Steve a few days ago, the water actually went over the road and inundated the Aragon and Smith Ridge pump station with salt water from over the Crossville Road. Kind of like Trump's Road. There's not much you can do with it, it's where we live. But this is an issue, because we paid all this money for storm protection. I'm paying a hell of a lot in taxes for storm protection, including for the Gulf to the Morganza levee. And when the water gets high enough that it's going to cross over the Crossville Road, those damn gates need to be closed. What point, what am I paying taxes for if we're not going to close the gate when my entire property is being inundated by salt water, and we got a multi-million-dollar gate down the bar, and we put in a set of locks, which I'm opposed to, and say point blank. I'm opposed to that lock. It's got nothing to do with storm protection. I still feel that way about it. But it's a done deal. I'll tax myself, voted to tax myself and my property and my family as well for storm protection. That barge is part of my saltwater erosion protection for my property. And if they want to move it, if they want to come rock it, cement it, build a bulkhead, keep the salt water off my property, that's fine. Because I don't want to, I've been to court many times, I don't want to go back to court. I don't want to fight the public. I don't want to fight you guys in this room to protect my land. Right. But I will if I have to. I'll have no choice. Yep.
I appreciate
if this comes up again, I have no choice. I'm not doing this out of a vendetta that I got to win. I don't never win.
Look, I ran because in situations where we dealt with, like building the bandstand, I found that sometimes government is more of a hindrance than a help, and I want to make sure that we're not a hindrance, right? And with that, informing people and having conversations, and that's all stuff that, I know we can have a long conversation with you, and we will. And I think, we might not find out tonight that water crossed over Crochettville Road. I know that on Sunday at 4 o'clock, it was a 10 to 20% chance that we would get tropical storm winds. And that storm just flipped in a couple days, right? So I know I was part of conversations that gates were closed as fast as they could be, with also taking into account that we had to let some shrimpers back in, and so it's a balance of we got to let people back in, get in safe harbor, get things closed, and then certain gates can't close unless there's a surge and a named storm, and those people are working real hard to make sure we get everybody protected. And these levees, your investment paid for itself, right? Because I got pictures it beating up against Humble and the other one. Right.
For the first time, the cables on the bubble dove didn't break. I know the whole history of
right.
the floodgate, every levee in Terrebonne Parish. Even down there through Lodge, I've had cattle down there for 20 years. Lost 300 head of cattle.
Right.
1990.
We're making progress. We got a lot of work to do, though, still.
Lost 18 houses in the streets of Montegut.
Right.
I'm an authority on what happened.
I believe that, man.
And I'm not doing nothing per se to protect my stuff. I sold most of that. I gave all the cattle to my grandson. I don't want to own anything.
Right.
But I want to protect what everybody else
Look,
left.
we're gonna chat with you. I promise you.
Possibly for another generation.
Right. I promise you. We're gonna check. We're gonna sync up with you.
I'll tell you point blank.
Right.
Before FEMA, Hurricane, you might remember Hurricane Florence.
Hey, if you don't mind, and I want to hear you chat, but I know everybody wants to say some stuff too. But we're gonna chat with you. I'm telling you. I promise you. Okay.
Interested in Hurricane Florence. My dad and my uncle put the roof back on our house
Okay.
in 1953.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question. I just have a thank you for the government for the boat launch, which y'all did with the railings and everything to fix it up for people to fish. I see people fishing there almost every day of the week now.
Right.
It's been a big improvement for the community.
Yeah, no, it's great. And look, sometimes something gets built and maybe something like a railing gets overlooked or whatever, not part of the project, but hopefully you see that we're responsive, right? We hear what's going on, we're gonna get it fixed. And one of the first things I said when that hurricane started was, look, we're gonna make some mistakes, right? It's gonna happen. You got to move on from it. And I'd rather make the wrong mistake 4 times than not make a decision at all, right? And so to get people to know that, do your best, give it your all, and know that we have your back and we want to do what's best for our residents, what's safe for our residents.
But like you said, you want to get people back on the water because you grew up
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
water. This has helped.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
people are there
I love
fishing.
hearing that. Yeah, great.
Clay knock, he's solid waste. All right, everybody thinks he's just trash, but what a lot of people don't realize, I don't even mean it like that.
It's pretty funny, though.
Really
We're going
guy.
to use that.
Yeah. But this man's in charge of taking care of that launch and a couple others too, and he does a damn good job. Look, if you ever go to his office, he's got cameras across the whole parish that he watches constantly, and one of them is at the launch, several different launches, and he makes sure every day that thing's suitable, and there's always something that comes up, wherever it may be, and he's on top of it. So that's something that's very important to us. And when we got here in January, it was great to see people like Clay. That's really important to them too, because like you just said, that's who we are. All right. So this is the man who's taking care of that for you.
I need to find from the bridge all the way to past the elementary school. We've been fighting this because it's cruel, all caving in. We don't know if we own it or state own it. We still can't find that. And I've been on the board going on 11 years and I still can't find somebody that tells me who that piece of property is. So if it's us as parish, I want to take care of it because it's becoming dangerous for people.
Along the bayou, along the highway.
Yep.
So I actually looked into this because we had some encroachment for a storm or just a high water, and I reached out to the DOT to find out where their servitude is, and I'm gonna get back with you on that, but it's a certain amount of feet. It doesn't go all the way to the bayou though. I can tell you that right now. It does stop, I want to say about 10 feet from the road, but let me get that number and I'll get back to you on that. But if it's on the edge, it's probably parish.
That's where everybody parks the Mardi Gras.
Right.
Kids that play back there.
Mhm.
That's why they looking and trying to.
We can't put a home over there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's too dangerous to put.
He also this guy cutting grass too, man. A lot of hats.
That whole back out, all the way back to
I just want to tell them about the CBG.
on the Montegut Bridge. It's just a matter of time when, not if, it's when. It's going to get empty. Further on, there's need some pictures up to 20 feet under the backup. And I've seen hundreds and hundreds of cars.
Yes.
18 years.
And just another thing real quick on this CDBG recovery, part of it, it's not listed in here, but it's probably somewhere in there. But we are looking at buying land at the end of Montegut and building a fishing pier and boat launch at the end of Montegut down there also. So that's in there. We've submitted all the plans, so that's another one of the things that we're doing in the Bayou. So not only Texas Gulf, but the Montegut one here, and now we're looking at doing one outside of the levee system. So if people that needs to go out and check on their stuff after when the locks are closed or whatever, can get out through there if they need to.
All right. Any other questions on CDBGDR? Yes, ma'am.
Actually, we made kayaking a few weeks ago, the lilies.
So,
We were scared with the lilies.
I know. And look, if I could get rid of lilies and love bugs, I'd probably run for governor, I
I
think.
know.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
that's
No
another
doubt,
thing.
right?
If you look at the beautiful boat launch that we do have right there where we launched at,
Right.
we literally had to move logs out of the launch to be able to launch on top of the lilies that are full of snakes.
Yeah.
So
We reached out to Wildlife Fisheries. They deal with that mostly. and they have a $5 million budget for aquatics, not just lilies, just all aquatic grass. And like they come spraying in the summertime, and so like we're having conversations like, if we could catch that in the spring, a little further back in the marshes, there's some opportunities to eliminate it. And a lot of it you see happens with water flow. And then we go to Bayou Country Sportsplex, and there's a pond, about this big right here, full of lilies. And it's like, pollination, no matter what you do, they're going to travel. And it is the most invasive species. We actually have a company that's setting up in Gibson that's want to convert it to like potted plant, biodegradable, OSB board, all that kind of stuff. And they actually said, we don't know if you guys got enough lilies. And so he's like, come on the boat. And rode down a couple bayous and like, oh yeah, I think we're good. And their goal is to process, I think, 100 tons a day. So it's coming. It's going to take a while. But in the meantime, we're working with wildlife fisheries and our own vegetation maintenance group. Look, I usually say this early on. We don't have enough money to do everything we need to do, right? And from a vegetation maintenance, we have two groups. We have Clay that deals with rough cuts and finished cuts, and then we have David that deals with drainage vegetation. And so, we're trying to, as much as spraying, whether you like or don't like that, sometimes that's all we have to do. And then so sometimes we got to go cut it before we can then spray it again. And so we're all working at ways to do things a little bit differently, a little bit better with all that. And trust me, we hate lilies just as much as you do. And we're going to try to figure out some ways to stop it from happening. Once it's there, can we use another use for it? Even conversations about maybe people that have sugarcane can use it as a fertilizer because it's rich in nitrogen, right? So multiple opportunities to address that, and trust me, we hate them. True. We can get shirts. I hate lilies.
Jason says if he can figure out how to get rid of lilies, he's going to be the next governor, and I believe that too. Now, what we was talking about with the wildlife and fisheries, so we reached out with the deputy secretary and had a meeting and got to understand their budget and what they're contending with. And that $5 million, that's not just for lilies, that's for all types of spraying. The problem is that their budget renews in July. Okay, and why that's important is because they end up spending all their money in the summer, and by the time it comes when you really need to spray those lilies in March and February to stop them from growing, they're out of money. So I say, look, can you do us a favor and make sure you don't run out of money in February and March? Because that would be really helpful. And he said, you know what? I appreciate it. And then, they never had a conversation with us before, right? But just establishing that relationship, said, hey, we want to be proactive. And them saying, hey, we're going to help you. I mean, that could be a game changer. Now, we had a lot of water. We had a lot of rain this year. I mean, a year ago we had a drought, which helped with the lilies. But this year's a whole different ball game. So being proactive, spraying, which people are iffy about that, but there's no other way around that. And that's just an honest conversation about how can we maintain and mitigate some of these problems. We got to do everything we can. Part of that is looking at a hard look at our vegetation contract and making sure that we're accurate, we're precise, and it's relative to what we need, right? Because sometimes those contracts just keep on progressing and being renewed without being looked at. So we're taking a hard look at those contracts, making sure they're responsive to our needs, and make sure everybody that's involved knows our problems. So,
and you talk about praying, pray for 10 days in winter instead of 5 this year. That also helps. Yeah.
You familiar with
That's Noah, by the way.
a wick?
Sir?
A wick boom.
A wick boom, a boom. I'm a farmer as well as wetland plant producer. But if we put a boom, Montegut Bridge, and the Klondike Bridge, wanted to come to the canal, because those ledges come from Lake Fields and Lake Long, we know it. If we put a wick boom at these bridges that could be operated by the bridge plant, lower it or raise it, and it goes up with the bridge when the bridge goes up, and back down when the bridge goes down. It's like in a hole, in a hole. You can wick spray over clover grass and kill weeds. You can wick over any kind of crop.
Sure.
Without killing all the fish in the bayou like some of these spray jobs have done. And they kill all the lilies in Bayou Little Tiger, they kill every fish in the damn bayou 2 years ago. I mean, it really smelled bad. You probably remember that. Most of y'all here might have passed that. But if we could put a boom, just something for you to study.
Well, look, we love that. Look, it's about being smarter. Because like Jason said, we don't have the money to do everything we want to do. That's the hard facts, right? But what we can do is be smarter, right? And look, using a wick boom, spraying at a different time of the year. Those are things we need to look at to make sure we tackle our problems better.
That water lily in that bayou. That water lily got to pass under the bridge twice a day. We've got 2 currents a day. I know that for a fact. And
You learning some stuff for us, man. Whew.
You're going to catch them on the way going up. We're just swipe it again and then boom.
Right. Yeah. Okay. He's soaking it up, man.
The later you spray, the more you got to spray. That results in fish kills and all those nasty things. So if you can be smarter, if you can do it ahead of time, it's better for everything.
All right, we're going to move on. Y'all ready? All right. Look, I appreciate, again, y'all time. And I'm going to stay here as long as I need to stay here. We love conversations. In fact, their nickname for me is The Conversation because I love to have conversations. So don't tempt me with a good time. So I do want to talk about the fact that we are dealing with a housing crisis, and the numbers are going down. You know, right after Ida, it was 2,500, 2,100 families not living in their homes. We're working with the Housing Authority and HUD to assist them in their plans to get people relocated. We have the Bayou Towers and Senator Circle still aren't recovered. You know, where are those people? Who's coming back? We have a bunch of different projects going on. We just reopened our beautiful Beginning Center. And so when you look at the tiers of service that we have in our parish, that's a place for families and women to have a shelter, right? So that was damaged during Ida. 3 years later, we just got that opened back up. And we have these different projects going on, 90 units, 40 units, 120 units, another 55 units specifically for seniors. To, again, affordable housing, mixed income housing to make sure that our residents have a housing opportunity. And again, we have some more residents that are having that problem now based on Francine. And so we're constantly working on addressing this. And I like saying housing crisis because that's what I feel like it is, right? If people can't live in their homes, if people would die to have an insurance problem like we have, that's a crisis in my book. And just think some people don't even have that problem because they don't have their own place. Any questions on this? All right. Economic development. So we just got an EDA waterline grant. And you say, well, why is that waterline grant on Martin Luther King important to you, right? That shows we're still working on economic development and we're still working on bringing business into Terrebonne Parish. And so this is the intersection of West Side Boulevard and Martin Luther King. You've noticed it's been high grass for a period of time. Well, the reason is there's no water there on that side. And so we're working on a project that's going to bring a water line in and some other utilities. It's also going to help. Terrebonne General is going to be building a wellness center. And so to me, when I look at new businesses, new stores, construction, that's economic development. That's bringing jobs, and it's all opportunities. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about that. Terrebonne Parish bought the Whitney Bank building at the end of last year. We got a very good price on it, and we're actually taking some of our offices and consolidate them. That building, based on the fact that we have tenants, should pay for itself in 6 years, on top of the fact that we're going to not have some leases we had before, and that's more cost savings. And so Gordy Dove was a part of that, and I think that's a great thing that he did. But you're going to end up expanding foot traffic downtown, and anytime you can increase foot traffic, again, you go back into that more business and maybe some more restaurants and more opportunities. The workforce building in Shreva, they just built at Fletcher. It's a big building that's going to be a combination of nursing and some other type workforce opportunities. And so that's our state investing into our parish. And then Cynthia, Louisiana, that's the Lilly company I was talking about earlier, is what's looking at setting up shop in Gibson. And so again, an opportunity. They're going to build a factory. They're going to have some jobs. And so to know that even though we're in rebuilding and we're in recovery, we're also still moving forward and doing some things from an economic development perspective. Any questions on that? All right. Permit totals, I think it's interesting to show this. Prior to Ida, we were in that, sub 4,000 area. We jumped up tremendously, and it's leveling off some. So, we used to have permits 2 to 3 days that were turned over. That's going to 2 to 3 weeks. But like lately, we've been dealing with a lot of Restore LA type stuff. But we actually would get a person in to deal just with Restore LA permits. And so it is taking a little bit longer. We're going through the process. We're trying to make it more efficient. But just to show you the permits that we've been dealing with, the post-Ida, we're going to have the kind of same thing for Francine. We are waiving Hurricane Francine repair permit prices. But we do ask, get a permit, please, because it helps us. When FEMA comes and talks about how many houses were damaged and how much money you need, stuff like us showing how many permits were filled out, even though they're free, helps us justify the money we're trying to get from FEMA. So it's not government just trying to have that control. It's us taking that data and giving it to FEMA and giving it to the state that says, this is how we were impacted and we need some assistance, even if it's a person in our office to help process permits, right? So that's something that you should make sure everybody understands. Go ahead. Insurance reform, I talked a little bit about this before. So, we're dealing with 2 different insurance problems, right? Homeowners and flood. Homeowners, the state legislature passed about 26 bills. They're still working on some things that makes our market more friendly. I brought Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple down to the floodgate down here to show him. I showed him the water line. I showed where the debris was. our investment saved us. We should get credit for that. We have new roofs, we have new telephone, all that stuff we should get credit for. And I think that's all part of that bigger conversation. We're working on what's called a CLOMR, which is a conditional ladder of map revision, to help make sure that the levees and the pumps and all the floodgates and all is recognized, whether it's a parish levy or a levy district levy, that it's recognized. The Thompson Road that we call a road is really a levy, right? That all that stuff applies and that we can use those credits to help get reduced flood insurance, but we have to go through a process, and we're working with consultants, and that could take 2 or 3 years. And that's the conversation I had with FEMA the other day was, like, we're going through this process, we're kind of leading the charge on it, and you're telling us it's going to be 2 to 3 years away, when FEMA's responsibility is to do it once every 10 years. And so they're dealing with data 2018 and before. Anything after 2018, they don't have. But we are working, when you look at what the parish can do when it relates to insurance, maybe not as much as we do on homeowners, but on flood insurance, those are the things that we're doing. Again, collaborating with the insurance commissioner, and we're in a risk rating 2.0 lawsuit with FEMA that we're constantly trying to push on them. And we had to bring up the fact that the parish has NFIP properties. We have FEMA flood insurance for parish properties, and what that means to the fact that we are also paying more for our insurance. That's taxpayer dollars, right? And so what can we do to resolve that? So unfortunately, it's not a quick process, and I kept hearing, and this is one of my first concerns, once I felt like we were better, that we wasn't as bad as we were in Francine, my first thought was, what does this mean for insurance rates, right? I felt like we have that 0 days since an accident. I feel like we're kind of back at that. But I hope that, again, it shows the resiliency we built up and the fortifying we've been doing. It made a difference, and we should get credit for that. And that's what I hope Francine is going to deliver for us. Any questions on insurance? Show of hands. Who's dealing with a homeowner insurance issue or anything as far as your homeowner's insurance going up? Anybody? Everybody going up? Flood? Anybody specifically dealing with flood? I try to pull the audience to see. It's all going up, right? So everybody's dealing with it in this room. We understand that. That's crazy. And that's the conversations we're having. So Archie was with me from Lafourche Parish. He was looking at getting something with insurance for a house inside the levee at a 7-foot base flood elevation. And they had a property outside the levee that had a 4-foot base elevation. And you look at FEMA and you go, can you explain that? Because we can't.
We're 17.5 feet, and we have neighbors that just built through the recovery program as well.
Wow. It's crazy. Yep. I don't know what else you can say to that. Moving on. Power plant, again, and I know you guys think Energy down here, if I'm not mistaken. But what's important with this is that we've produced our own power historically. There's a 200 megawatt pocket of energy between Morgan City and New Orleans. Our power plant was 80 megawatts of that. And so when you look at the fact that right now it's not functioning, hadn't functioned since Ida, we have some generators that helps us produce power in the event of a need, but it also stops us from having rolling brownouts. But the more stable we are in having our own power plant, number one, FEMA's recognized we need it, and they're working on the fact that they're going to help us build it. We had our first obligation of $65 million. We're waiting on the other one of $105. Again, that's a $107 million project. But what does that mean? So we have one feeder that comes in from Energy. We're trying to get a second one. And basically, if we produce it, no matter what happens, it all gets put into a grid, and you basically buy it back. It's smoke and mirrors, anyway. But when you look at the fact that if we had our feeders cut and we have a power plant, we can sustain ourselves. And so it's going to be the 3 to 5 year project to get it built. It's coming eventually, and I think it's important to know that we have it, we can support ourselves to a period of time. And, it may not make a much of a difference it is down here, but if something happens and we have a storm, we get cut off, you can go to town and have power, right? And that's what we're working on. And part of this is that we were working on 847 repairs post-Ida. And you go back to that FEMA insurance conversation. We're just doing that now. We were about 25% complete when Francine hit. Well, now we got to go through and say we had 147, we had 25% complete. Did anything break that we already fixed? And what did we fix that needed to be fixed? And having that conversation to figure out what that delta is going to be. But again, we're still working through those repairs. And I think when you look at the fact that now whatever poles made it through Ida that didn't make it through Francine, we shouldn't have a telephone pole problem when any hurricane comes through, but you still might have some, right? But again, that's stuff that we're doing. We're still dealing with those out of repairs like everybody else. Any questions on this? I just want to cover it real quick. All right. Accountability. So we talked a little bit about 500 properties in the condemnation process, 900 vessels in that need to be identified. We have some money that we have through American Restore process, American Rescue Plan, that we're going to be able to do as many properties as we can. But I hope with Francine, maybe we'll get some more of that funding. We have out another area looking at funding to do some tear down. Because at the end of the day, to me, you got high insurance, we just with a hurricane, and then you see a property that's blighted, or you hit a bump in the road that breaks your car, like that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's where I go to that quality of life conversation that says, we want to do everything we can to hold residential property owners accountable. You know, you got to cut the grass, you got to clean it up, you got to make sure that your property doesn't become a projectile in the next hurricane. And I know we experienced some of that. We're gathering that data also to understand, and we're going to take that data to the state that says we're trying to tear down all these properties, and these 20 houses got damaged by those 20 properties, that if we had the money to tear down and get rid of, again, that's less of an insurance problem, that's less of a recovery problem if we can get rid of that. I think that could be the thing that puts us over the edge that says, yes, here's the funding to tear that down and get rid of that other potential issue due to another storm coming through. And ordinance updates. So right now it's written, and we talked about the process server, right? That's something that's going to make it easier for us to get to these property owners and get them the information they need to know they're in violation. They need to fix it, all those processes. But right now, if you have a property issue now and you have a property issue in another year, it's completely different issues. You can have 20 properties with issue, it's all different. We're going to combine all that. So if you're one property owner and it has a continual problem, the fines are going to get more and more expensive. And if you have multiple properties and you have a problem, again, our property owners need to be held accountable. It's a responsibility to own a property, and it affects property values. And so we feel like we got to put more teeth in that, and we just got to make sure that we hold people accountable. So we're working on that. We actually just passed, so our panhandling and vagrancy ordinance was unconstitutional. So we're doing some things with camping, and I want to say I just signed that ordinance and approved it. So that's something we're doing to help make sure, so if somebody, for example, you're coming down to Twin Spans, that's the banana boxes and all, everybody probably saw on the right-hand side. If that property owner doesn't have a problem, there's nothing we can do, because the only thing we can do is trespassing. Now we got this new camping ordinance that lets us enforce somebody that maybe if a property owner doesn't have a problem with it, we could still do something about it. And again, it's like getting things cleaned up, holding people accountable. Recreation accountability, doing something where we have an advisory board, doesn't have any teeth, getting the presidents, all the rec districts involved, coming to a meeting, working on a master plan, and really coming with something that really we can really make an impact, in recreation. And my goal with that is, it's going to go into quality of life, is that no matter where you live, no matter how old you are, you should have equal opportunity to quality of life. And if this rec district has 6 things they do great, and this one's got 2, what can I do to get the 4 that's missing to the one that doesn't, right? And it's just, again, making sure that all our recreation districts can work with each other and help each other, and work as one, really, at the end of the day. And then more foot traffic in the parish, I talked about that also. Any questions on any of this?
I can say something about the recreation. This year, what we did, we took our wages for the fees that are coming to swim completely off, and we had more people come and swim now. Open pool. I know everybody's district charges different and all that. And there's Dularge, same thing. They don't charge. We can't compare what Houma does. Mm-hmm. So there's no way our people down here can't afford, to run down there. Right. So we hoping we put money into our stuff. Let's just keep it down here instead of trying to go in one central location. It's just way too hard.
Keep the Bayou balls and recreation, everything in their community.
Right. Hello, I play for Berg Mustangs.
Because it's hard, and you know that.
Don't consolidate into Houma.
Yeah.
Right.
There's too many people that work in Houma, can't come down, get kids, go back up to Houma in time for games.
So I was labeled, when I was running for office, as a guy I wanted to consolidate. And again, what's important to me is quality of life, right? I'm going to talk about that, how we rebranded quality of life now. And that's, again, that conversation, no matter where you live, no matter how old you are, because there are some districts that don't have a pool. right? There are some districts that don't have a gym. And so it's how can we all work together and have certain ones learn from another ones that, again, everybody gets that equal quality of life. And I got to give it to Jim. And one of the things I'm going to talk about, as I understand, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, but I understand we've had better communications in recreation with quality of life, because he's made it a priority to go to each group and say, hey, how can we help you, right? That's what we're working on, and that's what I mean is that how do we build some relationships? Look, TPR, when you say recreation, people think kids only, and it should be all ages. And when you say TPR, everybody kind of goes, you know. That's why we renamed it Quality of Life, and I'll show you what we did. Not only did we just rename it, I basically went to Jim and says, I want to rename it, and I want to put you in charge. And he goes, I got all these ideas. Right. That's what I'm going to show next. And then again, it's whatever it needs for the area. And because I think you do have to have two conversations, right? Tax revenues are down for the rec districts in the Bayou area. So if it is that maybe you and another group get together and maybe between y'all two, you know, we just went through a process with Rec 11, just a little bit, and we took some things back to the parish so they could do more with their money for the facilities they have, right? The softball complex, that should be a Bayou Country Sports Plus of the east side, right? That's what we're looking to do, and now that belongs to the parish government. I mean, we had an agreement, but we're doing that because I feel like the residents on the east side should get the same opportunities as those on the west side. And we might have had to put it in Montegut, but it's going to be at the air base, right? So then you start looking at, there's a master plan. What do we got to do to get that done? The only thing done on that master plan was a splash pad. What's next? What can we use? And then that maybe helps some of you guys not having to build something that is closer, right? And it's not perfect. Look, I understand when we did hurricane relief, we got to Pointe-Chan and they had the pod at the corner, Hope Farm Road. And we were in a trailer, and I was like, man, there's another 30 minutes of road. Like, let's go. And so we know some of these families only have one car and can't bring their kids everywhere. It's what can we do to provide those opportunities to everybody and work together as a group.
I mean, we are the highest meal out of all the recreation center. But our people voted for this, the community, right, and they see what we do with it. So if we start moving everything away,
right,
what's going to happen to this with the people's money?
Oh, no. And you look at some of that CDBGR money, you know, one of the things in there that we don't know if it's going to get approved, but the residents really push for is that community center, right? So some neighborhoods don't even have this.
Right.
But what I see is missing in this area is something that's Cat 5 rated, that fire department can stay in or people can stay in during a storm, or that we can recover out of right after a storm, right, in case this isn't available, right? Right. So that's that conversation that we're going to do a study to see where can we use things like that and put it into these communities, because this is keeping this community alive, right? Right. And I know by Pointe-Chan losing their supermarket, right, devastated that community. So it's like, what can we do to do something in coordination with the fire department or the rec department, that maybe there's something that's with the school, that the Pointe-Chan school is still there, and maybe there's a fresh market. And again, trying to make sure we keep that community hub there, because that community is different than this community, right? And look, we wanted to put pods everywhere. We were able to put a pod here. There were 6 pods released in the state of Louisiana. We got 5. Right. And then we did, like for Dularge, Dulac, and Gibson, we said, let's take some supplies and send it to a church, a recreation center, right, whatever it was. Let's go bring some stuff to Pointe-Chan and make sure they get it also, because we know some of those people can't go from there to here. And so that's really, look, it's that community conversation. It's moving our parish forward as a whole. And I say this a lot. At some point, it's going to take all of us. At some point, we're going to come to you and say, hey, we need your help moving our parish forward. But how do you want to do it? How do you want to do it, right? And that's why we're here. We're here because I want to hear what you guys think and how we should do it. And we don't have all the answers.
I don't have problem calling Jim. He calls me back. When the last one, we couldn't even get phone calls. But it, like you said, it's an open communication that we need to keep stuff rolling.
Yeah, and if Jim don't do his job, he's got to answer to no. And if no don't do his job, he coming to me. So I'm, so
I don't think that's gonna happen.
We're gonna hold people accountable. And look, a lot of times people come to me, man, you said you were gonna have open door policy and everything, and I go, look, I'm booking 2 weeks out.
Yep.
You send me your address, you send me your phone number, you send me a picture. That issue's probably gonna be resolved by the time you get to me, because that's what should happen, right? I should only get involved if something has been requested and somebody's not doing their job. And every issue is important, but again, I want to get, does Noah have it? Does Earl have it? Does Jim have it? And have they had an opportunity to fix it?
Right.
So, thank you.
Yep.
All right, anything else on this? We'll move forward. Next one. Quality of life rebranding, man. Look at that. So again, rebranded TPR to quality of life. And so what does that mean? And I talked about those two things at the top, but you know, we have the Civic Center, we have Municipal Auditorium, we have Bayou Country Sportsplex, we now have the Eastside Air Base Park, right? We stuck that in venues and destinations because you had to call two different people. If you wanted the Civic Center, you call one person. If you wanted the Municipal Auditorium, you call another person. We're putting all that, if you got to call anybody to schedule a venue, you go to one group, right? You don't have to worry about go to this one or go to that one. The downtown marina, Air Base Park, we said future. Well, that future is reality now, right? And having all that group together. Community enrichment. So we have HDDC in our Main Street group, right? And we had that. And we said, where does that fit? Well, I don't feel it fits in venues and destinations. And we said, you know, it's really community. So when I look at taking that, which is Main Street, downtown, HDDC, which is the Houma Downtown Development Corporation, and then what can I do to build from there? So we renamed that community enrichment, nonprofits, volunteerism, outreach, right? Getting into our communities proactively and understanding what the issues are and seeing what we can do to bring resources to these communities. It's starting with downtown and it's going to expand out like everything else, but it gives it a hub, a starting point. We got somebody doing some great things. Let's take that skill set and put it around the parish. And so when you look at athletics and leisure, that's your football, your baseball, your basketball, your traditional type sports. And so these are the three subcategories under what we call quality of life. First quality of life department in the state, if not probably the country, at least the South. And that's, again, it's a different conversation. And we start having that different conversation. Some people go, that's a great idea. Hey, I got funding for that. But if we just said funding for recreation, we might not have had that opportunity. And this is what it's going to allow us to do. Any questions on quality of life? All right. Bayous, we've talked about it a few times. The Bayou Terrebonne, clearing and snagging. Again, we're going to kick off another project, derelict vessel removal. We have $1 million in insurance. We're going to try to get as many vessels at once instead of having to demob and mob and demob and mob. We're going to get as many as we can in one shot and then build from there, working on. And the Bayou Revival campaign. So if you go on our Facebook page, we have a video. It has David, it has Clay. It talks about cleaning up the bayous, keeping the litter. You have signs now on just about all the bridges. Keep the bayou clean, right? Just that notice that says, hey, we want to keep trash out of the bayou. And we did some things for Mardi Gras. We put an orange fence along Bayou Terrebonne by the mall to stop trash from getting into Bayou Terrebonne. And then we put some berms, the thing you were talking about earlier, berms at bridges and caught trash to make sure it didn't get into the intercoastal canal. And that's kind of like that first step. We also put some nets on some culverts. We put some felt mats on some drainage basins. Again, doing everything we can to make sure that trash doesn't end up in the bayou and end up down here into the wildlife, into the animals. And so those are things that we're doing. And again, we're doing the cleanup of the 5 major bayous, beginning with Bayou Terrebonne. So we could say, this is what we did, and we want to do this in every other bayou, including dredging, right? There's some of these pump stations pump pump silt into the bayous. Bayou Dularge, right? Huh? Grand Kai, I'm sorry. Bayou Grand Kai is a great example. Very shallow, but that pump that's up there by Thompson Road is pulling dirt and silt and dumping it in that bayou, right? So we got to make sure we maintain all that. Any questions on the bayous? All right, next. Roads and bridges. LADOTD, so Clendenning Road finally got fixed. That's not the permanent fix. They got another project coming, but that was a repair. But I'm telling them, we call them all the time. I was about to do a declaration on that one, and finally they went out and fixed it. The Berg Bridge, January 25. It's February 25. We got to update that, by the way. Savannah Road project, Main Project Road, Robinson Canal Bridge. The concrete issues resolved. Then the next project is going to be the Boudreaux Canal. And they're going to be building a bridge on the side of the bridge. So the process that we can't get down there shouldn't be an issue. But we've also had the conversation that says, what happens if we have a problem with Boudreaux Canal Bridge while we're building a new one? What does that look like? Can we put in a flexi float bridge, a temporary bridge? You know, even if it shuts off marine traffic, we still need to get across, right? And what that looks like from a DOTD perspective. Are you thinking about it? Have you had a conversation? What's plan B? Those are the things that we're having conversations on now. We talked about, look at that, water lily maintenance, right? Y'all gonna ask it. Grass cutting. We're also working on a CEA with DOTD about cutting more of the state grass, and they pay us for it. And then that allows them to do other things, because our cut grass team is amazing. Grass cut team, they kill it. And then road striping. For us to road stripe all the roads, Terrebonne Parish, just parish roads, $3.2 million. So what happens with that and lift stations when I have the conversation about not having the funding to do everything we want to do is we do a road here, a lift station there. And so what I'm having our team do is put all those projects together. So say we got 10 lift station projects at $100,000 a piece. If we had $1 million, we could do all our lift stations, right? If we had $3.2 million, we'd do all the roads. I'm taking that and giving it to our state delegation, our federal delegation that says, hey, on this infrastructure project, Biden that signed that whole bill, can you find me $3.2 million to stripe all our roads? And hopefully we can get that done. Then that $250,000 a year that I'm putting towards striping, maybe I can put that towards something else, vegetation maintenance and everything. And so, again, that's what we're looking. We're making a big old list of projects, if it's funded, if it's not funded, and having it by categories that if somebody says, hey, I got drainage money, I could flip to a list, sort it, and say, here's my 10 drainage projects, and this one's number 1, this one's number 2, and really make sure that all of our people, including our council, everybody has that information. And once we get all that gathered, that's the information we're going to share. These are the projects we're working on, giving information to our residents, being transparent. We're going to upgrade our accounting system, and I don't talk about this presentation, but once we upgrade our accounting system, because it was outdated in the 90s, and so it's very, very old. Once I could do things like upgrade our accounting system, you better go to our website and look at the budget and see what vendors we spend money with and how much money we spend on drainage, how much money we collect in taxes, all that kind of transparency stuff we're going to be doing, upgrading that website. Again, put tools in your toolbox in your hands so that you can get information. And call us if you need to, right? But it's just something you can maybe look up or a form you can fill out online that gets it addressed. It's going to go into a work order system. The work orders will be tracked. We better look at a map. My goal is to pull out your phone, click on the map, and report an issue, right? Or see, this house has a nuisance abatement thing and get it. This building has a permit, to be able to look at some stuff and not wonder if it has a nuisance abatement issue against it. Has somebody reported the grass is tall? Does somebody know this building or building this pond that's going to affect drainage? Those are all things you better see online. It's going to take a little bit to get through, but it's coming, and that's the kind of transparency that is important to us. Any questions on this? All right. So feedback, we have the surveys printed out, or you can scan the QR code. If you haven't filled out an issue you have with an address, make sure you fill that out. And if there's any other questions from me or any other team, I'm here till every question is answered. And we'll have a conversation after that, though, okay? Thank y'all. Again, I appreciate y'all making time and giving some of your time, and I hope you feel like it was beneficial and worth it. And even if you think we could do a better job with this presentation, write that down on a piece of paper, because we're always looking for continuous improvement and to make sure you guys have information you need. Any questions? Again, thank y'all. If you don't mind my team, let's give these people a round of applause. Hi, y'all. No, y'all, we're clapping for y'all. Y'all clap for them too, though. But thank y'all again, and this won't be the last one, and we'll be back. And keep an eye on HTV, our Facebook. Every one of these we're doing, like this one we couldn't do live or record it, we're going to upload it. But go check out the other ones. There might be some information. We're telling people we're having them in different areas, but that doesn't mean we're just going to talk about that area. So feel free to go to another one if you have a question. Or again, feel free to call us. And I hear all the time, he talked earlier, we call, nobody calls back. Just to understand what phone number you call, we actually upgraded our phone system this year. That's going to save us about $200,000. But like I can actually answer the phone from my cell phone like I'm at my desk now. But it saved us a bunch of money. And so the phone system, that kind of stuff's getting better, and you're going to see improvements. And so if you don't hear from us, please don't give up. We might not have received the message. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. So again, thank you all so much for coming.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.